With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Welcome to Make It Rain with Adam Schein on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Yes, Monday edition of Make It Rain with Adam Schein here on VSiN. And my goodness, we have an unbelievable show for you today. My guy, Tim Welsh, longtime college basketball coach turned analyst, is going to join us coming up in 30 minutes. Love Tim Welsh. We'll talk about what happened over the weekend in the Elite Eights and what lies ahead for the Final Four, which is going to be off the charts amazing. Ton of great baseball to get into, including why Yankees fans, you gotta love sports. We have a lot to say on Jacob deGrom, the Dodgers, the Padres. We'll get into all the NBA, all the women's college basketball. And we are going to have an unbelievable show today. So much happened over the weekend, so much to bet on. Tonight's a big picture in college basketball. Listen, we're excited. Final Four is set. All 4 1 seeds make it to the Final Four, and I think it's going to be absolutely incredible. And listen, let's start with the path and how these teams got there. And Auburn able to take care of business against Michigan State in the final game of the Elite Eight. And listen, I think that Auburn deserves a lot of credit. They absolutely pounced on Michigan State. They had 17 unanswered points, and that was tremendous. And obviously, that was huge in terms of setting the tone and the tempo for this basketball game. Obviously, Johni Broome, that's a big story here in terms of Johni being just incredible and his domination and what he was able to bring to the table. And, then obviously he got hurt at about the 10-minute mark in the second half of this game and was able to come back. And listen, I had Bruce Pearl, the outstanding Auburn coach, on my SiriusXM radio show this morning. He did say that Broome is going to have an MRI on the elbow today, but he detailed the entire conversation in the fall, obviously, and I thought that Ian Eagle and Bill Raftery and Grant Hill were superb on this. It could have been the wrist, could have been the elbow, could have been the leg, and obviously it was the elbow that was problematic, goes into the locker room, has the x-ray, everything's okay, comes back in the game, hits that three, had the one-handed rebound. That was incredible, and, Broome said he'll be there for the Final Four, but they do want to get through that MRI today. Auburn's loaded, man, and they did an unbelievable job. And truthfully, even with the score relatively close and, coming close to covering if you had Michigan State, Auburn was in cruise control the entire game. I could do nothing but stress the positive. And Pearl talked to me about this today. There's a knack when it comes to being able to jump out to a big lead and use your experience and have the ability to ultimately make sure that does not evaporate. And Broome is special. The team defense is excellent. They obviously were the best team in college basketball all year, got the number one seed, had a couple of defeats at the end of the season that maybe kind of skewed some things, but they were clearly the better team when you take a look at it. And Michigan State's, based upon Auburn's defense and also missing open shots, couldn't hit water if it fell out of a boat. 7 of 23 Michigan State was from three-point range, and this was ridiculously impressive in terms of what Auburn was able to do. And no surprise, we had Auburn beating Michigan State, Auburn winning, Auburn covering, Auburn able to take care of business. Now, we had 3 number 1 seeds going when we filled out our bracket, made our picks, made our bets before the tournament started. The only 1 seed I didn't have going was Houston. Shame on me. Shame, 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 shame. Shame on me for getting this game wrong and believing in a Rick Barnes coach team to get to the Final Four. He always seems to fail in the month of March. Tennessee has never been to a Final Four, which is crazy but true. You take a look at what transpired for Tennessee in this game, and it's kind of crazy. Tennessee had arguably the single worst performance ever in the history of the Elite Eights in a big spot. Like, that's not even subject to hyperbole or exaggeration in any way, shape, or form. I mean, this was a complete and utter disgrace. 69-50 was the final score. The Vols had 15 points in the first half. 15 points. That is the lowest ever for a 1 seed or a 2 seed in an NCAA tournament game. Tennessee trailed by 19 at the half. 19 points. I mean, it's just embarrassing. 6 of 28 Tennessee was from the field in the first half. They missed their first 14 threes. And this was a genuine combination of Houston looking great. Kelvin Sampson's team is incredible. They have a long, strong winning streak of 17 games. Their length on defense, their tenacity on defense is legit. And, you know, I thought Gonzaga would bite them. That wasn't the case. You know, obviously Kelvin Sampson, what transpired on Friday night, designing that play, 2 seconds to go, on the baseline, inbounds play to beat Purdue, avoid overtime. That was the ultimate survive and advance, and that was incredible. Andrew Catalon and Steve Lapis, our friends from CBS, they were superb on this broadcast. And Lap kept having those benchmarks for, okay, can you get to this point to ultimately single digits by the 10 mark, single digits by the 5 mark. Opportunity late, and the crowd was into it for Tennessee to cut it to 9. Missed a layup. And then Houston officially put the clamps on him. And this was a tremendous, tremendous performance. And it was a nice combo of both. I thought Houston was unbelievable. I thought Tennessee was terrible. And that means we are going to have Houston go to the Final Four. And how about Florida? And there were 4 games, obviously, this weekend. And 3 were lopsided. This one was not. So this was the one in terms of the spread where if you had Texas Tech plus 7.5, congrats. And I had all the favorites covering, so we went 3-1 this weekend with the picks. But I'll tell you, and I obviously, you know, you trust me, I have stock with the audience, and I'll back this up too. At 75-66, so 3 minutes ago, and Texas Tech winning, I thought Florida was going to win, and for a couple of reasons. Number one, we just saw this. UConn outplayed them. When you take a look at it earlier in the NCAA tournament, and UConn was able to come back, and Florida was able to come back and win. So we've already seen this movie before. Florida, down the stretch of the regular season, then winning the SEC Best Conference in America, bar none, winning and taking care of business in Champ Week. There was just a great believability that Florida is going to be able to take care of business. You wondered a little bit about Texas Tech's legs after the Arkansas game. I mean, it's kind of crazy. 2:50 to go, 75-66, 1:46 to go. Florida able to tie it up at 75. And next thing you know, bam, final score, 84-79. So, you know, I think that when you look at what Walter Clayton Jr. was able to do, he went all Steph on us. And, you know, I've been following his game for a very long time. He used to play at Iona down the road from me, and he's just superb. And you saw what he did, you know, against UConn in that game, as we mentioned. And, you know, I think that Todd Golden is a superb coach. I mean, this team is like, as my friend Seth Greenberg from ESPN said, they're like Noah's Ark. They have 2 of everything, and they're so deep, and they're so talented, and so confident, and they're so brilliantly coached. So I was not surprised to see Florida storm back and win. And look, you know I said on Friday, Duke was the best bet ever, right? And, well, what happens if Alabama shoots like it did in the Sweet 16? That was never going to happen. I mean, you credit Alabama, but they set a record, and it's so difficult to duplicate that. It's literally unprecedented. So you take a look at what transpired with Sears, and obviously, you know, he was never going to duplicate the 10 threes. He had one 3-pointer. And Duke absolutely crunched Alabama. Wasn't even up for discussion. And this was a game where, let's be honest here, our guy, Cooper Flagg, was okay. Nondescript, really a non-factor. Knibble was great. Proctor was excellent. And these guys, you know, are so brilliantly coached. John Shire does an unbelievable job. And I just could not get enough of Duke, who you know I'm picking to win the whole thing. A NATO coach team in a spot like this, it's impossible to believe that they would ultimately get it done. And listen, I am super excited for this Final Four. I'm not going to tell you that this weekend was thrilling basketball. I'm not going to say that at all. One game was great. The other three were kind of snooze fest. I didn't really buy Tennessee coming back after the first half, and Michigan State is not good enough on offense. And as long as Broome was able to come back, Auburn was going to be able to hold. But I think this Final Four is going to be epic. I think it's going to be amazing. I want to stress that. I truly can't get enough. Houston is tremendous. Duke is tremendous. That game coming up is going to be amazing. I think, and I'll tell you right now, I like Duke. I think Duke is going to be able to cover the spread, right? And we will lock in Duke today at 5.5. I think Duke, and I know Houston is on that 17-game winning streak, and obviously, you look at Duke, they're on a 15-game winning streak. I think Duke, and we've said it, my pick to win a championship. Next time they lose is going to be next year. I think that Duke on offense, defense, coaching, they are just too great, and they're murdering teams. When you destroy a team like Baylor, a coach that won a championship, when you destroy Alabama, a top 6 team all year long, these are signs that it's Duke's time to shine. I don't think there's any question about that. And I expect Duke to win a championship. And it won't be easy against Houston, but I expect them to cover the spread. Think 7 to 10 point win for Duke. Great game. And then they distance themselves. That's what I'm looking for. Florida Auburn is going to be a show. And talking to Bruce Pearl today, as I mentioned on my SiriusXM radio show, said obviously we need to do a better job than we did in the first matchup on Clayton, on the guards. And, obviously got to wait and see what transpires with Broome and his health. I'm sure he'll go. We'll see how effective he is. Listen, Florida's the pick. And we had Florida and Duke meeting when we put our brackets together. So that's what we had. That's what we bet. We'll bet both favorites. We'll bet Florida to ultimately cover. I think that will be the case, and that will be incredible for the Gators, their depth and coaching and talent. But I think both these games are going to be amazing, and both these teams all year. Look, we're not a Johnny-come-lately show when it comes to college basketball or betting college basketball or watching college basketball. There are a couple of teams in the mix, but clearly these are the 4 best teams in college hoops all season.
Watching Make It Rain on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Look, if you're betting on baseball, make sure you're getting the best odds with ProfitX. ProfitX is the first peer-to-peer sports exchange in the United States, available in 40-plus states. That means you're betting against the other fans, not the other sports books, giving you, on average, 10 to 20% better odds. You can even request your own odds. Download ProfitX today. Use the code VSiN. Welcome back to Make It Rain with Adam Schein. So many reasons this weekend why you gotta love sports. How about my New York Yankees, your New York Yankees, our New York Yankees? My goodness, living up to the Bronx Bombers nickname. 32 runs in their last 2 games, and my New York Yankees are absolutely positively on fire. You take a look at how they were crushing the ball. 15 home runs in their first 3 games of the season. I mean, just incredible. 13 home runs in a 2-game stretch. That's a club record. Anytime you have a Yankee club record, that's about as great as it gets, considering that they are the most storied franchise in all of baseball, all of sports. Aaron Judge, 4 homers in 24-hour span. How about what transpired on Saturday? 3 pitches, 3 homers off of former Yankee Nestor Cortez. Paul Goldschmidt leading off. Bam! Cody Bellinger batting second. Bam! Aaron Judge hitting third. Bam! I mean, that was just incredible. 9 home runs on Saturday against the Brew Crew. 20-9 victory over the Milwaukee Brewers. Judge on Saturday, 4 for 6, 8 RBI. Absolutely incredible. Yeah, I saw Jazz hit a couple homers. You saw Benny Rice hit a home run. I mean, just amazing. In the 3-game sweep for the Yankees, 36 runs, 34 hits, 15 homers. They walked 16 times, and the batting average was .333 for the New York Yankees. And, of course, the Yankees showing off their new torpedo bats. And, just so everybody is clear, these are absolutely within the rules. And, this is straight out of the Bill Belichick playbook where, all right, let's find something that's legal. And, if it means you get more wood in the sweet spot, I mean, that's great. It's logical. Now, not every Yankee's using it. You see right there, Aaron Judge said after the game that, he's not changing his bat. Obviously, he's got a track record that's pretty amazing when you take a look at, what he's done over the last couple of years. And he was, serious and being funny when he said it. But look at the Yankees using the torpedo bats, right? Cody Bellinger on fire, Jazz on fire, Paul Goldschmidt on fire, Austin Wells on fire. And apparently the member of the front office who's from MIT, he was the one who took a look at some of the at-bats from Anthony Volpe, the ultra-talented, incredible shortstop who had, the bat sawed off a little bit and, wasn't making great contact, not getting good wood on some of these balls that, should have been, ripped and laced, and said, listen, it's a tremendous, tremendous thing in terms of having these torpedo bats. So I really think that when you look at it here, the torpedo bats are legal, they're kosher, they're fine, and this is just a creation, all the negativity from jealous Red Sox fans, as Rafael Devers literally has not had a hit and can't make contact and striking out in 16 at-bats 12 times to start the season. This was a different baseball team, no one's even paying attention, but it's the Yankees, and obviously, the Yankees had just a brutal month of March. I mean, it made absolutely no sense when you take a look at, Garrett Cole being out for the year and Hill is hurt and Stanton couldn't even lift the baseball bat. So, I think this is pretty awesome. Yankees are kicking ass and taking names. And, hey, torpedo bats, they've been approved. They've been tested, by Rob Manfred, Major League Baseball. It's like Costanza when he was taking batting practice on Seinfeld back in the day. So great, great stuff when you look at it from a Yankee perspective. All the haters and the critics I'll tell you exactly what they can do with those torpedo bats. I mean, this is nothing but gold for the New York Yankees. You had closers for the Brewers, players on the other team complaining about it. Anyone in baseball could use these bats. Bellinger said he used one with the Cubs last year, but it's the Yankees, and it worked. So, hey, I mean, it just makes sense. More, more of a sweet spot to ultimately drive the baseball. No issue with that. My New York Yankees are just smarter than your baseball team. How about the Dodgers 5-0? How about Mookie Betts with that walk-off home run on Friday nights? As you take a look at what has transpired here when, you take a look at everything that goes on with Mookie Betts and the Dodgers, and they're 5-0 and absolutely on fire and doing an unbelievable job. And I'll tell you, Mookie Betts hitting that walk-off home run was just amazing. Absolutely incredible on Friday night. I love what he said post-game too, where he said this was important for himself. Now, obviously, the team and the fans, and he referenced that. But, I just love what I'm seeing here from Mookie being able to drive the baseball. He lost 20 pounds. He was nervous. It was important for him, as he talked about, mentally. Dodgers are 5-0, and Sasaki didn't pitch well. Didn't even matter. The bats have been incredible. Defense has been great. This is just such an amazing team to watch. And the Padres are 4-0. The Dodgers are 5-0. The SoCal teams out west in the National League are on fire. And I just love what I'm seeing from the Padres. And we talked about this, right? Before the season, we said, yeah, they're making the playoffs. Don't let inactivity here at the end of the day, when you look at it and you're going to say, okay, they're not going to be a good baseball team. The Padres are as good or better than anybody when you take a look at the Major League Baseball and the National League at the end of last year. A lot of smart people, not me. I have the Dodgers. I thought the Padres were going to ultimately find the way to win the World Series. I love what I saw out of Pavetta. Watching Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN was good for the soul. Merrill's been awesome. Tatis flying around everywhere. Machado's making plays. And the Padres are going to make the playoffs this year. To start 4-0 after the inactivity, yeah, that's why you got to love sports. So I love every single second of what we saw from the San Diego Padres and from the Dodgers. And I'll tell you, even with the Yankees hitting bombs and the Dodgers Dodgers 5-0 and the Padres 4-0. My favorite thing that I saw all weekend in Major League Baseball, and why you say you gotta love sports, how about Jacob deGrom? He was absolutely terrific. This was a throwback. His 2025 debut was sensational. 5 innings pitched, 2 hits, no runs, 6 strikeouts. You almost got to jog the mental Rolodex to remember what Jacob deGrom was with the Mets. When he pitches like this, he's a show, and this is all part of the deal here. Why I picked the Texas Rangers preseason to go to the World Series. They lost on opening day against the Red Sox, bounced back, took 3 straight. You know, his lighter pitch great, offense was solid. Nothing better, though, in terms of Major League Baseball than seeing Jacob deGrom do his thing. That is great for your sports soul and something where you got to say you got to love sports. How about our guy Ovi netting goal number 890, 5 goals away from Wayne Gretzky and obviously his all-time goals record. And Ovechkin is a gem, and Ovechkin is sensational, and he deserves all the love in the world. And listen, at the end of the day, I think this is going to happen. I love the celebration for Ovechkin. And, I love the fact that, you're looking at the Washington Capitals as a team that can absolutely do some major damage here. So Ovi is absolutely going to take care of business. Take a look at the betting odds for the team that Ovi's going to score his next goal against. That's pretty fun. I love that this exists, and I would take the Blue Jackets at a plus 145. OKC and the Cavs win again in the NBA. More reasons why you got to say you got to love sports. Thunder able to take care of business, beating the Pacers on Saturday, and the Cavs are able to take care of business. They beat the Clippers, and you look at the Thunder with SGA, and he goes over 30 points again. He's going to be the MVP, and the Thunder still are ahead of Cleveland now for 2 games when it comes to the best record in the NBA, and that matters because I'll keep saying it, they are going to meet for the championship, so that's where my brain is at right now. You see the championship odds right here. Thunder plus 150, that's still my bet. I think the best bet on the board in terms of juice is the Cavs at plus 650, and I think Cavs Thunder will meet for the NBA Finals. Paige Beckers dropped the career-high 40 points in UConn's 82-59 victory over Oklahoma. 40 points for Paige, 6 rebounds, 3 steals, and a couple of blocks and assists. Beckers was absolutely incredible, and listen, I expect her to absolutely torch, sadly, because I picked USC before the season started and before the tournament started, but with no Juju Watkins. I do believe this will, in fact, be the case here, that Beckers is able to get a victory and UConn's able to advance. South Carolina and UCLA punched their tickets to the Final Four, and, South Carolina always feels inevitable here. But I'll tell you, I like UConn. And I was going with USC this entire time until the Juju injury. I think UConn, Gino Auriemma is absolutely superb. Beckers is on a mission. I know, Dawn Staley, South Carolina, all they do is win. UCLA, this is obviously unique and special for their program to get to the Final Four. But I will be betting on UConn. UConn, you bets, to capture the championship in women's college basketball.
You're watching Make It Rain on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
The tournament may be winding down, but the betting action never stops. Major League Baseball's back. NBA, NHL playoffs around the corner. Of course, you got the Masters and the NFL Draft just weeks away. Stay ahead of every opportunity with a VSiN Pro subscription for just $9.99. Get daily best bets from VSiN hosts and guests, exclusive betting splits from DraftKings and Circa, 24/7 video access on the VSiN Watch app, plus our MLB season betting guide and upcoming Kentucky Derby betting guide. No matter the sport, VSiN Pro has you covered. Sign up now at VSiN.com/subscribe for just $9.99. VSIN.com/subscribe. Welcome back, Make It Rain with Adam Schein. Joining us right now live with a progressive guest line, one of my favorite people in all of sports. my guy, Coach Tim Welsh, of course, did an unbelievable job coaching Iona and Providence, and now he's a phenomenal basketball analyst for ESPN and SiriusXM. Coach, how are you?
Oh, it's been way too long, my friend. Rick Wright and Fagans and you name it. It just goes back in memory. Every time I see one of your tweets about your beloved Syracuse, it brings a smile to my face.
Oh, Coach, man, I miss seeing you. I miss seeing you when we were working together at SNY, and miss seeing you on the sideline. We were so great for so long coaching college basketball, and I always loved chopping it up with you. And look, I can't wait for the Final Four. We have 4 1 seeds. I'm great with that. I think they were clearly the 4 best teams in college basketball all year. Was there anything that happened this weekend, Tim, that surprised you? This is historic, obviously, on the second time in history that we have all 4 1 seeds. Any surprise from the Elite Eight?
The only surprise was that Florida somehow survived. And, I thought Texas Tech had the game won pretty much in hand. And having watched Texas Tech up close, I had a lot of their games this year, and very well coached, very well seasoned, confident team. You saw it at the end of the Arkansas game where Grant McCaslin told us and everyone else that he told his team, we're winning this game, when it looked like they were dead in the water and they expected to win. It was almost like Florida had the same attitude down the stretch, but I was surprised Texas Tech gave into that. But basically, they didn't really give in. They missed the free throws, and Florida said, wait a minute, we've got the guy with the cape. We've got Walter Clayton Jr., and you don't. And basically, that's what happened. And Florida escaped again. I mean, this was a real escape. The UConn game was a toe-to-toe battle, and they deserved to win at the end. UConn missed some shots in the first half. They probably should have hit it. They might have won the game. But basically, Florida won that game. But Texas Tech kind of handed it to them with the missed free throws. And if you do that with a guy like Clayton and company, you're going to prevail. And Florida with such confidence, too, for a team that's really never been there. And in this moment, and a young coach as well who pushed all the right buttons. But they certainly deserve to win. But surprised they survived that end of the game. I thought Texas Tech had the game won.
So I'm fascinated to piggyback off that, right? From a coaching perspective, if you're Todd Golden, do you stress the mentality and survive in advance and you know that you beat Auburn in the regular season? Or, Tim, do you grab your team's attention, they're going to the Final Four, and say, okay, guys, we need to play better, and better than we have throughout this tournament, better than we did even when we beat Auburn in the regular season, if we're going to ultimately achieve our goal?
I think so, but I think the moment itself, it brings all types of clarity about what they need to do. I think if you overstate it with your team, when you're at this point, you're number 1 seed, you played in the best conference in college basketball by far, and you were dominant in it, and you took over and beat the team that you have to play on their home court and dominated them without Elijah Martin as well. So, but you have to understand the respect level will be there for Florida, for Auburn. They understand if they don't play well, if they have an off night, that Auburn's really good enough to beat them. And it could happen. I mean, all you have to do is look at the line. Everybody knows it's going to be a close game. And, when you have Broome versus a guy like Clayton, it's just going to be a premier matchup. And, Bruce Pearl has been in this moment before. He's been to the Final Four. But Todd Golden looks like he hasn't been, but he looks like he's been there before. That's for sure. The way he has coached in this tournament. And then what can you say about Walter Clayton Jr.? I mean, obviously, just put them on his back in 2 straight games. And the way he just, at the end of the Texas Tech game, they had him bottled up, but he found a way to make deep range shots under duress. Tells you a lot about his character and their moxie and makeup.
Without question. I think you summed that up perfectly. I mentioned to start the show, I like Florida in a great game and a close game, and I'm going to stay with my prediction when the bracket came out. And also how I feel about the teams now. I think that Florida is going to win a classic. Who are you picking with Florida and Auburn, and why?
I think it's Florida just because of their multiple players at every position and the skill level. I don't know how you scheme up to beat them, because if you take away Clayton, they have so many other options, especially with their big guys. Their big guys are so skilled, not only defensively, they can go out and switch out and guard guards on the perimeter, But offensively, if you start pounding and trying to get gimmicky with defensive schemes against them, their big guys are so good at passing the ball not only to each other, but if you double them down low, they're going to pitch it back out and find the open guy on the three-point line. So I think Florida in a tight game as well, but I feel a little worried about picking against Bruce Pearl because of his passion.
Yeah.
He's going to show that tape to his team every moment he can of how they went into Auburn and beat them. And he's going to tell them that no one's picking you and play the disrespect card and will his team to a close game. And then at the end, it's going to be who makes the shots and the plays at the end.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And Pearl absolutely will do that. And he's a master at it. And listen, this Houston-Duke game, I think, is going to be superb. But I want to start with Duke here, Coach, because Duke was my pick before it all started to win the championship. And then again, after, it was announced, the brackets and Selection Sunday. And watching Duke play, they're not just winning, they're mauling teams. Like when you do that to Baylor, that captures my attention. When you do that to Alabama, that captures my attention. I know Caleb Love, who has experience against Duke from Carolina, went off, but they really mauled Arizona for the vast majority of that game. Even if Cooper doesn't have a monster game, John Shire's done a brilliant job coaching that program. What has stood out to you when you take a look at Duke basketball?
Well, first and foremost, I didn't see a lot of Duke where I studied them during the season. I'm more centered on the Big 12. And when you turn them on casually and they're up 30 against Georgia Tech or Miami or Florida State, it's like, what's the point? So they just dominated their league, obviously. And the league wasn't very good. The top part, Clemson beat them, but that's it. And I can see why. They have so many answers. I don't know where you begin to say we're going to shut this person down because, let's be honest, Cooper Flagg didn't have his best offensive game the other night, and they won easily. And it kind of reminds me of UConn a year ago when you talked about them, like, who's going to pick against UConn? Well, a lot of people said Purdue's going to beat UConn. I said, you're absolutely out of your mind. But I do think that the level of play in this Final Four, the teams are better than they were a year ago. I think Houston's better. I think Florida's definitely better. And then you have Broome on Auburn. So you've got good competition. But the thing about Duke, they've got the length. Defensively, they're really good. I mean, in the past, we always thought about you play fast, you're Duke, you're going to shoot some threes. But now they can play a lot of different styles. Malawach inside, he's just unbelievable. The way he gets out on the perimeter, defends, and the lob plays. And Cooper Flagg, the way he just can play point forward. And I would be aware of that because he's going to come out ready to score a little bit against Houston. But Houston's going to have the defense. They're going to try to shut him down. They're going to have to go make some plays. And Malik Brown is an X factor for Duke. He's got another week to rest, and he's an important piece, especially defensively.
All right, minute to go, Coach. Who do you think ultimately wins and why, Houston and Duke?
Well, I give the slight edge to Duke, only because they've got all those multiple bigs to battle with Houston up front. But Duke's got to be careful. They don't want to get into a spot where Tennessee did, where they're trying to run set plays and really get organized against Houston, because you try to get organized against them, they rip you apart. So they've got to make sure they play an open game on the offense in the half court. I think if they do, they can break the ice with Houston, but they have to be aware. If they don't, they can get choked on early. And I'll pick Duke slightly, but I'm not that confident in it. I may change my thoughts as the week goes on because I really like Houston.
All right now, 30 seconds to go. Who you picking to win the whole thing?
Well, from what I saw with Duke the other night, I just think they're a team of destiny with the great player. I think Duke over Florida. I think it's going to be a classic. I think it's going to be an absolute classic. A lot of up and down basketball. We like to see points. There's going to be a lot of points and a lot of fantastic play, not only on the perimeter, but at the rim as well.
I mean, I love it. You have Duke over Florida. I have Duke over Florida. Our mutual friend Jim Boeheim has Duke over Florida. That means it can't fail. Coach, you're the best. We appreciate it.
Always great to be with you, Adam. Thank you.
You're watching Make It Rain on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Want to know where the money's really going? Unlike other sources, our betting splits come straight from Circa and DraftKings Sportsbooks, giving you the insight into where the sharp action is landing. Circa is known for taking big bets from professional bettors, while DraftKings provides a broader market perspective. That means you're getting the real action, not just the public money, but the kind of the wagers that move the lines. See the percentage of the bets versus the percentage of the handle on every game across every major sport. How about you make smarter, more informed bets? Get VSiN's exclusive betting splits for $9.99 for your first month at VSiN.com/subscribe. Welcome back, Make It Rain with Adam Schein. Time now for our news, notes, nuggets, and nightly plays. And we have a ton of hoops and a ton of baseball coming up for you tonight that you could bet on. And let's start with college basketball on the women's side. And man, I look at this point spread and it kind of breaks my heart, trying to think what it would be if Juju was healthy, but Juju Watkins is out, tore her ACL, and this stinks. And, I do think there will be some great pride and great coaching on the USC side, but I think this is going to be too much here. I mean, Paige Beckers is amazing and special, and Gino Auriemma, what his UConn Huskies do when it matters the most. Going to be very difficult here to, believe that USC is going to win and even come within the number. I know 14.5 seems big, but it's UConn. And normally this time of year and historically, UConn, you bet, you win on UConn hoops. And that obviously was the case last game. I think UConn, USC, I wish it was going to be more competitive. I don't have any kind of good vibe for USC tonight. TCU taking on Texas, spreading this one to 7.5. The total's 128.5. Winner is going to take on South Carolina coming up in the Final Four. I think that of the matchups in the Elite Eight, this is the one with the least amount of juice. The expectation is that we will see, we mentioned this earlier in the show, UConn winning a championship. And obviously, I'd put Dawn Staley in South Carolina next on the list. Celtics, Grizzlies tonight. 84% of bets placed for the Celtics to cover the 5.5 point spread. 80% of the bets placed for the total to go over 235.5. 92% of the bets placed on the Celtics in terms of the money line. That would kind of interest me if you wanted to do a nice little fun New England-esque parlay with women's basketball for UConn. I think the Grizz are a waste of time. And they fired Jenkins, their coach, on Friday. We talked about that. Then they go out and lose to the Lakers. There's just no good kind of feel right now around this basketball team. No trust, no believability, and no reason for me to pick the Grizz or to bet on the Grizz, frankly, the rest of the way. How about the brawl that broke out with the Pistons and the Timberwolves? And, Minnesota did win. 7 were thrown out of the game as the brawl spilled into the crowd. That was nerve-wracking here when you look at it from a perspective of watching both these teams. And, you look at Minnesota, and obviously this is a spot and a situation where they needed to get that win. Obviously, that was supremely important, and they're trying to hold off the Golden State Warriors for that 6th spot in the Western Conference. Pistons are still in 5th in the East, trying to hold off the Milwaukee Bucks. So, listen, obviously you never like to see that kind of fight, that kind of melee. I think both these teams, obviously, moving forward, have bigger fish to fry than fighting with the opposition. Wins are obviously what matters here for both these teams down the stretch of the season. Rockets-Lakers tonight. This interests me greatly from a betting perspective and a playoff perspective. 86% of the bets are on the Lakers to cover the 4 points. 81% on the total to go over 223.5. 78% on the Lakers money line. I do like the Lakers tonight in terms of the money line. I expect Los Angeles to win. This is also the kind of game, it's in LA. Obviously, they're competing with the Rockets. You want to try and get that 2 seed, still within reach. You also want to make sure you don't fall too far down. You want to make sure you get in the top 4 if you're Los Angeles. Still kind of crazy, even with all the drama, negativity, injuries, lack of defense, bad play. Lakers are still in position to get a top 4 seed, but they have to ultimately take care of business. And you see the Western Conference standings and odds right here. 45-29 for Los Angeles on the season. And this is the kind of game. They're at home. They're facing the Rockets. It's a big ball game. Must be able to get a win tonight. How about when you take a look at everything going on with Major League Baseball? And, I always enjoy when you have the games in, the month of March. And it's always fun in terms of who's hot and who's not and who's playing well and who you trust and who you don't. And, you take a look at the Boston Red Sox and their struggles when you analyze it from the perspective of, the issues with Devers and dropping 3 straight after winning on opening day. And how about Devers, right? 0 for 16 to start the season. 0 for 16 to start the season. That is unfortunate. And, obviously the game is in progress now, and you have the score 4-3 with the Baltimore Orioles leading the Boston Red Sox. And, listen, obviously, Baltimore having their first home game of the year. That is huge when you look at it from a Baltimore perspective. Always great to go to Camden Yards and understand and appreciate the incredible crowd and, crab cakes and baseball. That's what they do when it's not football season in Baltimore. Red Sox are scuffling here. This is a team that I picked preseason to ultimately win the American League, and they are scuffling. There is no question about that. So the live action up on the screen as we speak, and it is 4-3 with the Baltimore Orioles taking care of business. Always love the day ball and the in-action bets and lines. We have the Royals and the Brew Crew as we speak with Kansas City leading Milwaukee 4-0. I mean, they can't blame the Yankees torpedo bats for that one, right? I mean, can't do that. Right now you can get live action on the Royals right now if you go to DraftKings, minus 105 as we speak for Kansas City on the run line. And if you look at the White Sox and the Minnesota Twins, there right now it's 9-0 Chicago, right? 9-0. The Chicago White Sox are winning a baseball game 9-0. I told you before the season how much I despise the Minnesota Twins. I thought they were going to be terrible. They lost every game they played in St. Louis. That was obviously disappointing. And obviously, I'm not surprised they lost the series. I would have been nice if they scored a few runs. If you're getting mauled by the Chicago White Sox, I mean, it is time to evaluate and reevaluate everything. So very unfortunate here if you are a fan when you look at it for the Minnesota Twins. I mean, they have just been dreadful. And how about the Braves and the Dodgers? Braves, have to try and pick up the pieces, getting swept in a 4-game series against the San Diego Padres. And now they have the Dodgers. So you go from the Padres, who I do have making the playoffs. You lose all 4. You can't hit water if you fell out of a boat. And now you have to face the Dodgers, who are an absolute juggernaut right now. 88% of the bets plays for the Dodgers to cover the run line, minus 1.5. 66% of the bets plays for the total to go over 8. 92% of the bets are placed for the Dodgers on the money line. And for more splits, you can go to VSiN.com/splits. Time right now to give out our best bets. The best bets are brought to you by G-Bank, official bank of VSiN. G-Bank up in the old ante with up to $750 bonus for new G-Bank Visa Signature Card customers. First, new customers to spend $1,000 on eligible purchases within 90 days from account opening, you'll receive a $250 bonus. In addition, if you spend $50,000 on gaming and sports app loads in the first 30 days of the account opening, you'll receive another $500 bonus. That's potentially a $750 bonus. Apply now at VSiN.com/GBank. That's visa.com/gbank. Subject to credit approval. Terms and conditions absolutely apply. Now, the Marlins are actually off to a pretty good start, and they've been charmed. And the Mets, they struggled mightily in Houston, and, we did not pick the Mets to make the playoffs, and their rotation's dreadful. The Mets, I thought, foolishly avoided starting David Peterson against the Astros because of the matchups and lefty-righty. He's going to start against the Marlins today. So don't overreact to the first weekend in baseball. We're going to take the Mets on the run line, -1.5 at -118 to beat the Miami Marlins. Stay tuned to VSiN after Make It Rain. Follow the money. Mitch and Paulie, can't wait for it. Then VSiN Primetime, Matty Humans and Timmy Murray. Then stick around for Cashing Out with Joe Storalo, 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks to the guys in Vegas. Thanks to the great Mike Cohen. Talk to you mañana. Make it rain with Adam Schein.